Hey y'all, I'm Molly if you're new here, and if you're not new, long time no see. It has been a hot minute since I last made a video. If you stick around to the end of the video, I will talk more about where I've been and what's going on, and what I hope to do to continue making videos on this channel. So let's get right into the video. I promised a while back that I would do a review of my experience with GriefShare. Because I haven't made a video in so long, and I really didn't take a lot of notes before making this video, I'm not sure if I'll cover everything that I really wanted to talk about, but I think that I will still manage to hit the high points to give you an idea of what GriefShare is like and what my experience was with it. And let's just get into it. So here's the book that you get that comes with the GriefShare sessions, and there's 13 lessons in here because the program is 13 weeks long. So GriefShare was started by, hang on, I gotta read their names, David and Nancy Guthrie. They are from Tennessee, and many years ago they had twin newborns that passed away. And their experience with grief over their children led them to create this sort of outreach program for other people experiencing grief. From what I understand, they also do an in-person weekend program exclusively for parents of dead children. One of the facilitators that I met the first night that we went, she also has a dead child, and she highly recommended that my husband and I attend, which in that moment I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I can't even focus on the words you're saying right now. So before I break down each of the lessons, I want to talk a little bit about just my overall experience and how I felt about it. And I'm just going to probably ramble a little bit, so bear with me. I promise this will be worth it for you to get a really good idea of whether or not attending GriefShare might be good for you. My apprehensions for going to GriefShare, the reason that we didn't attend GriefShare until 2.5 years after our daughter died. One was because I really wanted my husband and my sons to go. I wanted us to go as a family, and at the time it just was really hard to coordinate our schedules, and also they weren't really into it. I couldn't really, I wasn't going to push them. I think I talked about this previously in my experience working with Tom Zuba, that he really helped me from a man's perspective to understand that my expectations of my husband and my sons of how they would express their grief or what kind of support they would want is going to look completely different than what I need. So I feel like it came about that we went at a time that our family could benefit from it the most and could better absorb the information. That was my first apprehension for not going for so long. My second apprehension was I made an assumption. I assumed that it would be a bunch of older people whose spouse had passed away after, 50 and 60 years of marriage, and that it was going to feel very uncomfortable and awkward, and that we would be the only ones there who had experienced the death of a child, so we would feel like we couldn't speak up, or that we would stick out like a sore thumb and feel very uncomfortable. Spoiler alert, that's pretty much exactly what happened. So the gist of it is there was a facilitator there who has a dead child. However, she was unable to continue attending because of medical issues with another child for the rest of the session. And so we were just left there then as me and 4 huge guys would just come in and take up all of this space, and I felt very like I said, I feel like we stuck out like a sore thumb, and apparently we were quite an anomaly because people don't come in groups like that. It's usually the husband or the wife of someone who has passed away. The bulk of the group was widows. There were a few widowers as well. One reason I was willing to attend is because one of my dearest childhood friends, that was her second session as being a facilitator. She had been attending GriefShare after the death of her husband, and she's younger, and also she talked me into it and really made me feel more comfortable with the atmosphere and looking forward to having her sitting with me made me braver, more willing to give it a try. That being said, it was very uncomfortable wanting to share whenever it would be time before watching a video, and then after watching a video when there would be discussion time. I felt very uncomfortable trying to share, for one, because it takes me a while to put what I'm thinking and feeling into words and to collect myself so that I'm not crying, because I'm not the kind of person that can talk while they cry. I'm the kind of person that ugly cries and can't get my breath and just, feels completely out of control. So just trying to control myself to keep myself from crying the whole time and keep my composure, I just was very much sitting there like a statue, and I was trying so hard to just absorb the information, but there was so much information. And also, there were a couple of people there who they were there because a parent had died, and both of the people that I am remembering were very extroverted and very much willing to spend all of the time talking and not giving other people a chance to talk. And although the facilitators were wonderful and very careful to try to give everyone an opportunity to talk, there's only so much they could do to keep someone from just bulldozing the conversations and even saying things like, I know that your child died and that's probably worse than what I'm experiencing, but... and then go into a long reason of why they think that their pain is worse than ours. And that is something that I struggle with. I struggle personally with feeling like my pain is worse than other people's, and working on recognizing that everyone's pain is the worst that they've ever personally experienced. Just because you might be someone whose child hasn't died or spouse hasn't died, the death of your parent or sibling, or a really close friend, that might be the worst thing you've ever experienced. So you're coming from a place of that is the worst pain you've ever felt. So I have to work on not looking at you and thinking you have no idea how bad it could be, but to actually put myself in a position where I can see your pain and I can sit with you in your pain and not have it cause me to focus more on my pain. I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if I'm making sense, and if these might be similar reasons why you might have hesitated to do any sort of support group or therapy or anything like that. So let me think what else I wanted to say. Okay, I'm going to get into the lessons more now, and if something else comes to mind that I wanted to share about the overall experience, then I'll just throw it in there. So buckle up, because if you've watched any of my videos before, it's going to be a roller coaster, and I'm going to be all over the map, and we're just going to talk it out. So let's look at the overview of the lessons. They offer some great resources, some great online resources, and other places to look for more support along the way. Oh, this is something I forgot. So we started our meetings, and we were meeting, what night were we meeting? Thursday nights, I think. I think we were meeting on Thursday nights. For us, it was like a 45-minute drive. We had to meet, we had to orchestrate to the T everyone meeting there depending on who was getting off of work or where we had to go. Again, if you're familiar with what it's like to be deeply depressed and dealing with grief, adding more things to remember and things to be responsible for on top of just surviving each day, it's like climbing a mountain. And so trying to figure out if we were going to eat out, which eating out is expensive for us with as many people as are in our family, as well as just, I don't know, just to have to make those decisions was overwhelming. So I would have to try to plan ahead something to cook, to put either in the crock pot or have sandwiches or something ready to go. And then one of my kids would meet us there after work, and so I would have to bring him a sandwich or something, because our meetings were from 7 to 9, I think. If I remember the time right, I think it was 7 to 9. So for him to meet us there when he got off work at like 6:30, maybe it was 6 to 8. Maybe it was 6 to 8, because that seems more reasonable, because that's why it was harder to get there, because everybody wasn't able to meet at home and ride together. whatever. Anyway, trying to orchestrate getting everyone there and getting everyone fed, so that, you know, we weren't hangry and all of that. It was just a lot. And it was very, it was exhausting. So I was exhausted when I got there. And at the end of each session, it's, you know, you just, all of the tension in your body, I would go home and just be so tired. And then the next day, this was something too that my friend, it's my friend Jenny, that if you've seen previous videos that I've made with her, you can go back and check out some of the videos that we've made where we were talking about some grief topics. She said that it's like a, how does she name it? It was some other words, but it was something like a hangover. Like you're just exhausted the next day because you're just so worn out from pouring, you know, from trying to take in all that information and pouring out emotions the night before. Okay, stay with me. So halfway through the sessions, we had done 6 sessions, maybe 5 or 6 sessions, when the pandemic came and everything was shut down and we were no longer able to meet in person. So this was the first time ever that they were going to attempt to do our group meetings online over Zoom. So for many of the elderly people in the group, they were not willing to continue over Zoom. They just weren't comfortable with it. They felt like it was too impersonal and they just weren't willing to participate. For me, it was amazing because now I didn't have to stress and rush and worry about making sure, you know, I had planned ahead something to eat, making sure we were all going to meet each other there and have to drive 45 minutes there and back, and all of those things were eliminated. So it was a whole lot easier for my schedule. The other sessions that I had done, I mentioned before working with Tom Zuba, those sessions were over Zoom in a group setting. And so I was familiar with that and comfortable with that. So for me, it was all right, or I thought it was going to be all right. I will say it's different. It's a very interesting thing to do it both ways, because the dynamic in person is more comforting in a way. It is more comforting to be there with people. I think because I enjoy hugs. It is pleasant to be able to see a friend and hug them, and you know, there really is a sense of connection in person that it doesn't really translate as well to looking at a computer screen or looking at your screen on your phone. So that's interesting. And I am sure with the pandemic and with so many things being moved online, like children having to do all of their classes online, or people that do use therapists regularly having to meet with their therapists online, that we're going to find out, studies are going to be done, and there's going to be a lot of information coming out about how that changes the dynamic of things. That being said, it was different because over Zoom, you can mute yourself and stay muted, there's less, for me, there was less pressure to speak up. Even when I wanted to, like there were times my husband and I would discuss, especially afterwards, we would be like, so-and-so said something and I really wanted to say this, but I didn't feel like I had the opportunity or the time, or just didn't want the attention that would come from saying that, and that it would open another conversation. But my point is we did half of the sessions in person and half of the sessions online. So it's a very odd way of having gone through it. So I can't say for sure that had we done the whole session, had we done all 13 weeks in person, my opinion might be different about it overall, but we're just going with what we got. Okay, I'm actually going to start going through the lessons now, I think. Let's try. Okay, so the first lesson is asking, is this normal? And I remember looking at the lesson in the book and watching the video, and I think for the most part it was helpful because they really did a good job of helping explain that everything you're feeling is normal and to be expected, and there's nothing wrong with you. feeling overwhelmed and feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, whether you cry or you don't cry, whether, you know what I mean, like whatever you're feeling, that it's all normal. I'm not sure if in this particular lesson though, they did begin talking about things like, but if it's been X number of months, or if it's been so much time and you're not to a different place at that point, that it's not normal. There were a lot of times where I feel like the information was contradictory, because it was like, this is normal, but then in another lesson it would say it's not. And so I, was like personally offended, especially because if this is the first time that anyone has ever heard anything about grief and grieving and had some sort of support on their grief journey, it can make you grasp onto that piece of information and then assume that you're doing it wrong, and not giving yourself that grace to recognize that it's going to take longer than you expected to feel better or something like that. One of the biggest things for me was when they did get to a session that was about the death of children, and it was like, it typically takes, someone a year or so to start feeling better after the death of somebody, but if it's the death of a child, it can take 3 to 5 years. And I'm like, hold up. Where'd these numbers come from? Where are you getting your information? You expect me to believe that in 3 to 5 years I'm supposed to be better, and you're giving that information to other people, to all the other people in this room that are like, oh, well, it's been almost 3 years since your daughter died, so that means that you're almost better, right? And I'm like thinking to myself, you're giving this information that these people are then going to turn around and say to somebody else, and it's not going to be helpful for them. So I could nitpick to the nth degree of the things that were said in the video lessons, the things that are in the booklet, and the things that the facilitators would say, or the things that other members would say that rubbed me wrong. But this is just my honest opinion. This is how I felt going through it, and just sharing for anyone out there who has never tried a GriefShare group and wondered, somebody's honest opinion. Okay, this is getting so long. The second lesson is challenges of grief. It talks about why your pain is overwhelming, effects that grief has on your mind, body, and spirit, how to get things done when you don't feel like you have any energy. And like I said, some of these things were really, really helpful. And then sometimes it was like, I don't know about this. A lot of it too, I understand that this couple that, began this program, where they were coming from, and they're wanting to support people, and their experience with grief is theirs. They, neither one of them has experienced the loss of a spouse. But a lot of times they're talking to people who that's what their grief is about. And so it's hard to listen to somebody telling you what is or isn't normal when that's not something they've ever experienced. This is another reason, again, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, why working with Tom was so helpful for me, because he has experienced the death of 2 of his 3 children. And so I was able to listen to him with a more open mind, because it was so much closer to my experience. And he wasn't someone who was trying to just shove sunshine and rainbows down my throat or shove faith down my throat. He was actually asking really thought-provoking questions that were helpful for me. Let's move on. Okay, so lessons 3 and 4 have to do with the journey of grief. It's helpful goals to set you on your journey, how to deal with those who try to rush you through your grief, and how long the journey of grief typically lasts. Like I said, there is nothing typical about it. There is no one way or common way or normal way. It's your way. It's how you experience it, right? Every individual is going to have a different journey. Every individual in my family with the death of our daughter has been completely different. Everyone is responding differently. So a lot of this made me angry. Okay, so they recommend that you write a grief letter where you can explain to your friends and family your experience, let them know what they can expect from you and how they can comfort you, and list specific and practical needs. One reason that this rubbed me wrong, I think it probably has a lot to do with the fact that at this point we're already 3 years out, and so why would I even write this letter now, because I've already been abandoned by most everybody, and the attempts that I have made to reach out have been met with crickets. So why would I bother trying now? And I understand that somebody could diagnose me as being stuck and unwilling to try to feel better, because I'm unwilling to continue to try to rip off the Band-Aid, rip open the wound again to try to get other people to support me, that I've just sort of decided for them, if they're not currently walking with me on this journey, then they're just not, and I'm not going to go try to hunt them down and open these conversations that are obviously very uncomfortable for everyone and extremely painful for me. So why would I put myself through that? However, perhaps in the early months of the death of a loved one, if you were capable of writing a letter that you could then give to people to help them support you, that might be really healthy. That might be really helpful. So lesson 4 is part 2 of the journey of grief, and it's why is it important to put effort into your healing, how events surrounding your loved one's death affect your grief, and the best way to deal with your loved one's belongings. One thing that I remember is something about a year after your child died, you haven't touched anything in their room, and that's not healthy. I wanted to come across the table. I really was screaming internally, because how unhelpful, that's about the best way I can put it. How unhelpful is it to tell someone that a year after their child has died, they should have already been through their stuff and they should have already done something different with their room? No, you don't get to make those kind of decisions for people. You don't get to tell somebody that that's the way to do it or not do it. That was just infuriating. Again, there is not going to be a program or a therapist or anyone who's going to get everything 100% right. I get it. But I'm just going to add that disclaimer again here. I am sharing my experience and how I felt going through these lessons with the group of people that I was with as we went through GriefShare together. I'm going to pause real quick and add this, because I'm going to probably forget it if I don't. They recommend going through the sessions twice. That the second time you go through, you get way more information than you did the first time, because the first time you're just overwhelmed with all of the information and with your own emotions and all of that. I get it. I think I will go through it a second time, but I was not prepared to go through it a second time right away. Like they do 2 sessions a year. I think it's 2 sessions or maybe 3 sessions a year, and it was just too soon. It was just too much too soon. Number 1. Number 2, knowing that some of the same people would be coming back in the same group. No, I wasn't willing to go through it again with the same people, and it's kind of a crapshoot. Who's going to be in each session? You just don't know. And for me, another reason, especially after we all had to go on lockdown and had to do everything over Zoom, we could have quit, right? But my personality is one that I'm not going to quit. I was miserable and hated every second of it in some ways, but my family was on board and I wanted us to finish. I wanted us to get through the whole session at least once together. I'm pretty sure if I go through the session again, I'll be going through it alone. Potentially my husband will go through it with me, but I'm not going to expect my boys to go through it with me. If they want to, that's great, but I'm not going to push them to go through it a second time. I had another point to that, but I don't remember what it was. Let's keep going. Okay, session 5 was grief and your relationships, how the death of a loved one affects your friendships, why solitude can be a blessing and a curse, how to deal with friends who don't understand your grief. Again, there was a lot of good information in here. It was helpful, and there's a section on caring for grieving children. I never did go to watch, there's an extra video on their website that you can watch that has to do with helping children who are grieving, and it was highly recommended to me multiple times that I should watch that so that I could support my children better, and I just never got around to doing it. I never got around to watching it. But yeah, I think that was actually a pretty good lesson. Was on why, and the points are: God wants you to share your feelings with him, why being honest with God is an expression of faith, what God has to say about your why questions. This wasn't bad because it did use a lot of examples from the Bible of why we ask questions of God, or why we have expectations of God for things like, not letting people die, and things like that. But there was a lot of things that my husband and I discussed where we felt like different scriptures would have been more appropriate. And I'll get to it closer to the end, but I can see part of, at this point, you could see part of where a main point of these lessons was for this couple and their mission work, perhaps, was to use this program as a way to gain believers. I'll get to that. Okay. Number 7 was guilt and anger, dealing with false guilt, grieving conflicted relationships, and handling grief-related anger. I think this one might have been pretty good. I wasn't able to take notes during the videos, even though there were places to take notes on each little section of the video, because for me to stop and write down what somebody was saying and my thoughts on it, I wouldn't be able to hear the next part of the video. And I just couldn't do it. And I always meant to go back and make notes later, but I couldn't do that either. Okay. There were a lot of examples in the videos. There were a lot of people speaking about their experiences with the death of a spouse, the death of a parent, the death of a child, even like the death of an aunt, or other relatives that you wouldn't necessarily think that someone would need to go to GriefShare about. So it was a well-rounded amount of experiences maybe that were shared in the videos, and in some of the stories that are also shared in the book. So that was actually kind of helpful for me personally to read other people's stories about the death of their child. Number 8, complicating factors. How traumatic experiences affect grief, how to deal with nightmares and flashbacks, and how thinking affects your emotions. This one was pretty deep too. It was helpful because it really did dig into trauma-based grief. I felt like it did a pretty good job, I think, from what I remember. I don't know. Okay. Number 9 is about being stuck. How to prevent getting stuck in your grief. Common misconceptions that hinder healing. Why your path to healing isn't always smooth. This one I think is one that annoyed me because it was talking about being stuck. And in so many ways, the perception of being stuck means you haven't just gotten over it yet. If you're still talking about your dead loved one, then you're stuck. I don't know. I can't think of all of the examples now about being stuck. I don't remember if I already did a video talking about being stuck, but somebody needs to remind me to do a video about what it means to be stuck in grief, because that's another thing that I do not agree with. I'm sure there are things that count as being stuck that I have that are not coming to mind right now, like being stuck in ways of becoming addicted to medications or becoming addicted to alcohol or something like that would be classified as being stuck in your grief. But for the most part, the definition of being stuck is the fact that you haven't cleaned out your child's room after a year. The fact that you haven't cleaned out your husband's belongings that died, after a year. That you're still talking about them all the time. That you still cry. Those are things that people consider being stuck, and that's not being stuck. Grief lasts as long as you are still alive, because your loved one is still dead and you still miss them. And it's ridiculous to assume that you're supposed to reach a place of being fully healed and then be fine for however much longer you live. That's not realistic. Unfortunately, people that do believe that will have to experience grief in order to recognize that that's not how it works. All right, number 10 is Lessons of Grief, Part 1. An often overlooked reason that grief is so painful, why going to church can be difficult, and the benefits of helping others. An often overlooked reason that grief is so painful. I didn't make any notes about that, so I'm really not sure what they meant by an often overlooked reason that grief is so painful. But there are notes that say you lost more than a person, first in holidays, and planned for difficult days. So I'm not sure about that. And part 2, lesson 11 is part 2 of that says who you are now that your loved one is gone, why no one grieves perfectly, and what grief can teach you about relationships. And these are things that I feel like they were close. Some things were pretty good. I don't remember specifically things about these lessons that drove me nuts. Let's see here. Okay, so lesson 12 was on heaven. What is heaven like? Should I communicate with my deceased loved one? Are near-death experiences reliable descriptions of heaven, and many more. So there was a lot of stuff in this lesson that was good. It was okay, but at the same time, it was like, you're kind of pushing the envelope for me. Because, as I will get to lesson 13, the last one was, what do I live for now? Why moving forward is a necessity, why it's a process, and why peace and pain will always coexist. I mean, they got a lot of that stuff right, because peace and pain coexist. Joy and sorrow coexist. There's not one without the other. There's not gratitude or pain. There's both. But for the most part, digging into the meat of part of why they were talking about heaven and what to live for now and how to move forward had to do with their beliefs about how to be saved. And because I believe, based on the scriptures, there are more steps to salvation than what they shared, that was where it got kind of dicey for me, because again, I see that they are using this program as a way to potentially bring someone to Christ who otherwise never would have even considered having a relationship with God or seeking out Christ, that it would make sense that they would use this program in that way. And also because the way that we find peace is because that we can have the opportunity to be in heaven and be reunited with our loved ones. It makes sense that they would want to include that in their program. I just personally felt like there could have been more to it. They could have They could have went deeper in what that looks like. So this video is so long and my voice is leaving, my throat is getting sore, and I am tired of sitting here talking. I will put links to other videos that are related to this similar topic in the description of this video. And what else? And if you have any questions or any comments, or you've been to GriefShare and you want to share what your experience was like, leave those in the comments as well. And if I think of anything that I forgot to add to this video, I will put it in the description and in the comments. I don't know. I don't know what else I want to say about that. So if you've made it this long into the video, let me go ahead and talk for just a minute about why it's been months since I made a video and what I'm hoping to do with this channel in the future. One thing, adding to everything else that I have to get through every day to survive, on top of that, doing the GriefShare meetings, it was just a lot for me to try to make time to do videos, to have the energy to do videos. It was also coming up on the anniversary of the day our daughter died, as well as her birthday, as well as my birthday and Mother's Day and Father's Day. All the things like getting knocked down over and over and not being able to get back up. So I tried to make a conscious decision that it was okay for me to step away from making videos for a while and just focus on doing the best I could with what I had to do. I also was dealing with a lot of stress in my job. Even though I work from home, the job that I was doing was becoming more and more stressful. And recently, just a couple of months ago, I transitioned to an easier position. And so I'm trying to unravel all of the stress and get comfortable with a new position, learning all the ins and outs of that, but also recognizing that it gives me back some time to take care of myself and to focus on my healing and just trying to unravel everything and slow down, because in a way, slowing down has actually made me have more mental time to think about things that I haven't wanted to think about, the things that I was able to stop, shut down and not think about because I was just too busy or I was too tired. And so in a way, that was my coping. Being so busy and overwhelmed and tired was helping me not look at my pain. And that's not healthy. For me anyway, I recognize that I really need to spend more time sitting with my pain. So all of that stuff added up to me just stepping away from making videos at all. So I had to take my own advice and back off. And it meant doing nothing for months. Nothing related to making videos anyway. So one thing is I just made the decision that I was going to sit down and do this video today because I had the energy and I made the choice to do this instead of other things that would have been productive with my time. And I also, this is crazy, I also started a second channel, which makes no sense. Why do more when you couldn't just handle one? But I started a channel about homesteading and gardening, and I've recorded 2 videos so far. They're not actually up. Well, they might be up by the time this video's up. But I've started to notice how much I enjoy sharing that part of my life, that when it comes to making channels on this video, it's heavy. It's so heavy and it's exhausting and draining. But making those videos has been kind of fun. And so feeling like I can figure out a way to make a video on this channel, but also make videos on that channel, giving myself permission to spend less time making videos for this channel and making videos for that channel that I am enjoying and that are pleasant to make and bring me joy, that is helpful for me in having an outlet to share part of my life that does bring me joy and does bring me peace. I'll share that in the description, that other channel, if you're interested at all in farming and gardening and those kind of things, if you are interested in watching those videos. But that's sort of where I am right now. I have more ideas for this channel that I want to make videos, but I am taking the pressure off of myself to do them weekly or to force myself to sit down and make them when I'm just not feeling it. So I really don't know how often I'm going to make videos for this channel. I do still want it to grow. I do still want more people to see my videos and to reach the people that need to hear what I'm saying. But I've had to give myself permission to realize I can't pour from an empty cup. I have to work on myself just as much as I tell you to work on yourself and to give yourself permission to let go of so many things, right? So I have to take my own advice. So in saying all that, I'm saying I'm going to make videos when I can. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. I'm not leaving this channel. But I am focusing more on my healing and what I need to do for my own mental health, and focus on making videos when it feels right, when it feels like something that I want to share and I'm not feeling drained by it or feeling bad about it or feeling obligated to just put something out there. I'm definitely working on a healthier relationship with my goals and intentions for sharing my journey and my own needs, and recognizing that I don't have to do it all at once. I don't have to get it all out there at once, that I can take my time and still feel like I am being helpful, that I am supporting the grieving community, but not harming my own health, my own mental health and physical health to get it done. My throat hurts because I haven't done this in so long, so I'm gonna go. But I will chat with you in the comments below, or in future videos, or over on Instagram, or wherever I might see you. I love you all so much. I'm so thankful for you. I'm thankful for you giving me your time to watch these videos, to have conversations, to share with people that you love that are grieving, because we all need each other to get through the crazy time we're going through right now, but also just to get through life in general. So that's it. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.